So there is a part of me which was morning college and day job. And one of the things, I actually worked for Bosch and Lomb in sales and marketing. And it was really a sales job when I was trying to sell lens. And one of the biggest learning was, just letting your ego get out of the way of your growth. Because you're no one. Your marks, your degrees, or, your ranks don't matter. And one of the things I learned to persuade someone to deal with rejection and to be able to make that sell when people buy from you because it means value to them. So one of the first learnings was let your ego break, because sometimes you need to break to make, and sculpt your personality in. So that was one of the things. Of course, at NDTV was very interesting as well. So the first day at work was when I interviewed the chairman of SBI then, A.K. Purvar, and K.V. Kamath of ICICI. That's first day at work. And when I was on the field, my own colleagues came up to me and say, "Hey, did you join CNBC?" So that's like tested with fire. First day at work, out in the field. Those are, some of the recalls, if you may. That's what it was. At NDTV, learning was phenomenal because you start with no connects. You start as a cub reporter, and then to find stories, build relationships with people who are important, whose time matters. You learn the hard way that, look, people talk to you not because who you are, but it's also the trust that they feel over a period of time. The fact that they see you passionate about something, the fact that they know that you're there for a cause and you're passionate about it. People respond to that. It's not the designation, it's your story. I was the technology editor at NDTV at some point in time. And funny enough, I realized that technology is more about people than it is about devices and geeky words. I actually ended up selling business intelligence and analytics as well in one of the avatars. That was a job mostly across Europe. Trained a lot of senior executives to be media ready. That was an experience too, because the journey to the top may look very glamorous from the outside, but the life at the top is quite lonely. And the expectation from you is huge. You literally have to be a superhero every day. And how do you deal? How do you communicate? How do you understand your stakeholders? How do you, be 24 hours ready to be ambushed? It's a tough situation. So helping them wade through their executive responsibilities as a media trainer was, again, very interesting. That there was another company, an Indian conglomerate, who was looking for someone to launch a corporate television, first of its kind. This is 2010, in 11 countries, 8 languages. And, somehow I was approached and I thought, hey, that'd be interesting, because that was the first digital channel of sorts, so digital corporate network, and launched it very successfully. It was quite a project, and that excited me, because then you were not just in front of the camera, you were doing end to end. And the fact that you were launching a first interactive digital corporate platform was fantastic an experience. So that's got me there. And I was a part of the innovation lab and part of the marketing communication team. And the CEO of the company and the CMO of the company, they decided to float their own company, because social media analytics and analytics was going up at that point in time. And they said, hey, why don't you be the founding member of the venture and, try us with destiny. So there I was, marketing and selling business intelligence and analytics, and mostly customer experience analytics, mostly people analytics. And that was fantastic. We sold that company off eventually, but that was some experience. So that happened. And media, like I said, communication, media, marketing was core to myself, and that's why I kind of went back and did what I had to do. And okay, so I was with Tech Mahindra. I was heading their corporate communications and public affairs globally. IBM, yes, 6th of April amidst the lockdown. So it's been a virtual journey and an interesting one. So yes, I mean, it's been very different. It'll go down in history. It'll be pretty much a marker of sorts. Haven't met a team member yet. Haven't been to an IBM office yet. And yet working, functional member of the team. And it doesn't seem like it's a new company anymore. So there is a easy answer and there's a nuanced answer. The easy answer is, look, the world has changed. The human civilization has changed. Everything has become virtual. We have digital flat world. The digital era, which was an option before, is the reality today. It's mainstreaming. So if the world has changed, there is no way that any industry, any society, any community or an individual will not have an impact. So there is that macro factor playing out. And we don't know how that's going to be in the future either. So there is that. Then there's an immediate effect, whether you look at the economic barometers and you look at the ratings, etc. There is, of course, the jury is still out on economy in terms of the recovery and when will it happen. So there is that phase of transition that is going to pose challenge for each one of us. So that's there. The positive, if you ask me, this is the time to plan for the future. What happens 12 months later? What happens 18 months later? And where the companies invest today will define where they go tomorrow. We are looking at the digital divide being bridged, and perhaps there will be new winners in a post-COVID world as well. So I look at glass half full, if you may. There is definitely a challenge and we shouldn't ignore it, because that will really be denying reality. But I think there's an opportunity to plan for the future. If you don't do it today, and if tomorrow is going to be someone else, capitalizing on the opportunity. So what I was saying is, the change is really at two levels. One is professional and personal. So personal, as I said, is where your home and work has become the same space and everything is collapsed into one. So how do you define your personal boundary, your professional boundary? How do you balance that relationship when you're working from home and you're working for home? We are, of course, doing many chores than we did in a pre-COVID era. So I think there is a sense of balance that we need to define for ourselves. Of course, there is also, with that, we don't know our own anxiety or fatigue levels. When does your day start? When does it end? Those things are very important. So I think there is a need for self-care, self-awareness, self-structuring of self in a work from home environment. And at a professional level, let's face it, as I said, everything has changed. If you don't have a digital first attitude, if you're not comfortable being on camera, if you're not comfortable networking with people virtually, if you don't know how to engage people in a virtual environment, if you're not able to build relationships through it, if you're not able to pivot to new formats, for example, in a marketing communication space, formats have just changed dramatically. Your traditional media, in some sense, has shrinked. Their digital presence has increased. There's a hybrid world at play. And then there are new set of things coming into play. For example, your own content. Owned content is a very powerful medium today. Visual content is very important. Maybe AR, VR, augmented reality or virtual reality will have a larger play in our environment, because if you have to transport another person to an experience or a shared experience mode, how else do you do it? We have to worry about the brand drivers now, which are very different. So just talking profits and top line is not cutting it anymore. unless you're talking profits with purpose, unless you're talking about health, safety, the larger environment, and the goodwill, I think there is a need, there is a gap. And if you don't, prove yourself on that test or that parameter, I think your ability to engage with people will thin out in the long term. So people trust credibility. And then, of course, there is a battle that we are dealing with, the fake news and information overload. I think the need for trust, credibility, and for consumers and for your audiences to understand and relate to you and believe in your purpose, that is what is going to define, in my view, at least the next few months, if not the rest of the decade. At the end of it, it's about protecting the environment. You can only run a business when you have the environment around you healthy and existing to start with. So if you want to be profitable and you want to have more revenues, you need to worry about the larger environment. And one company or one brand can't solve it. It is a collective cause. It is the family that matters. In a situation of crisis, it really does break down to the basics. And basics is your employees are your biggest strength. When each individual comes together, that's what will keep you sustainable. They are your real stakeholders in that sense. And of course, your clients and your employees and the real, the family unit, if you will. It really comes down to that. The rest can wait. The fancy paint on the window can wait. It is the insides, the concrete inside that needs to be stronger, the foundation. And that's why employees are at such a foundational level of what we are seeing. It is also, as leaders, perhaps you have to be open to be mentored yourself by your own team. It is important that you set an example, that you're involved, like in a real sense, and it's not a tick in the box. Are you available for them when they need you? Are you okay to look at them and deal with their imperfections? Is it okay if they lose their cool? It's not being judged against them. Once you allow all of that, and it's about embracing failure as long as there's learning at the end of the tunnel. And it's definitely nothing to do with being incompetent at work. That's a non-negotiable. But failing and trying new things, I think we got to incentivize that behavior a lot more. And once you do that, who knows? I mean, they outdo their own imagination. Even if you don't realize it, there is a conditioning that you grew up with and your need to be perfect. So that's a self-imposed limitation sometimes, and the pressure that we have on ourselves. So that we have to solve. The next is, of course, at work. And somebody asked me that, Tuhina, oh, don't you think you should change? I said, listen, people have to learn to accept for who I am. And in the due course, they will learn the value I bring to the table. And then it's even Steven. And that's what happened. Also, as a woman, you always have to understand when are you going to say no? What is not okay? If someone is making a sexual remark, you don't have to stiffen up and smile. You must stand up and say it's not okay. Because sometimes in that room, you may think others are laughing at it, but they are equally uncomfortable. It just needs a voice. So you must voice it out. And I learned that you got to be your own voice. And don't race yourself against anyone. And don't think your values and your success parameters should be the same as others. Because otherwise you are letting yourself into a competition that is only going to destruct you. So you got to have that self-assured personality. And know what your success benchmarks are and know what's right and wrong for yourself and your own conduct and code. Also, I feel that there's a Gresham's law, and for a minute, if you will indulge me, which says bad money pushes good money out of market. What it means is that when there are soiled notes in the economy and everyone gives those soiled notes, People keep the nice shining notes with themselves and don't circulate. As a result, the entire market is circulated with soil notes. So, if you want to circulate your ideas and if you want to promote your ideas, you need to be in circulation. And I don't mean doing too much, because the other end is equally difficult to deal with. You don't want too much. You don't want to become a noise bubble. You're not there. Be there, circulate, network for the right reasons, right purpose. And I think that's a good thing to do. About that, because we don't need to always get in the room and talk about how the world is so bad and what can we do to get it better. We need to really talk about the world and what can we do to make the world better. And I agree, look, wage gap is a reality. I agree that if 50% of your human race is almost women, almost 50%, then why is it that there are not 50% in every walk of life? There's a long road there. And more than equality, I think it's about equity. I don't think everyone wants to be everywhere, but they want to be where they want to be as individuals. And we shouldn't paint it so hard that we miss the individuality of a human being. And that's gender neutral. So we need to expand the base. We need affirmative action. We definitely need more forums. We need, assertion. But we need to change the world and not ask all the time.